Ken Trahan with Lenny Vangilder. It's our First NBC Bank weekend preview brought to you by First NBC Bank with 35 locations throughout Southeast Louisiana and now the Florida Panhandle as well. The New Orleans Pelicans back in action Friday night on the road at Oklahoma City. Quick turnaround to play the Bulls at home on Saturday night, coming off of a loss to the Thunder at home on Wednesday night. But the Suns lost again last night, Lenny. The Pelicans are in a prime position to get to that 8th spot. Phoenix is struggling. Oklahoma City has not been able to put it together with injuries and beyond, but lost one to them the other night. Got to get one back tonight.
Tonight's critical because now if you win the game tonight, you assure yourself of winning a tiebreaker with Oklahoma City. You lose tonight, now you're going down to next levels of tiebreakers because this is the final game of the series with them this year, and you will have split the 4 meetings 2-2. Win tonight, you win the series 3-1. That assures you of the tiebreaker with them if it would come down to that. Obviously, both teams still looking up at the Suns, and we'll see how that plays out. But really, I think you went into Wednesday night thinking, okay, you want to try to split these 2 games at Oklahoma City. This is not the way you wanted to have to do it to go on the road. In my mind, Friday night is the biggest game of the year thus far.
When you look back at the game they lost, Russell Westbrook went off, tied a career-high 45, and nobody could defend him on the ball. But then again, very few can in the league. The problem is, where was the backside help? Where was the front side help down low defending the rim? It just wasn't there. It's one thing to make him shoot over the top. It's another thing to let him get into the painted area and create, especially when he's the only legitimate threat they had.
Yeah, I didn't like the way the Pelicans finished the game the other night. I mean, they
missed
were in
their last
position
11
to win
shots.
the game. Yeah, just and didn't score the last 5.5 minutes of the game, I think it was. So Oklahoma City, even though they were playing without Durant and they've had their issues this year, this is still a team that's been in the finals that has some skins on the wall, and the Pelicans don't. So you got to take what happened a little bit with a grain of salt from that perspective. And Oklahoma City stepped up in crunch time when they had to, and the Pelicans did not.
College basketball, another bad loss for LSU. Auburn hadn't won on the road in the SEC all year long. They go into Baton Rouge and win. And I don't know, Lenny, this team just lacks toughness. They lack focus. They lack defensive presence when necessary. They're too loose with the ball on offense. And despite talent, it's not there. And now Mickey and Martin are being projected as early round picks. So, you're looking at a team that might have this one-year window, even though they've got great players coming in. So very disappointing. They've basically played themselves out of the tournament at this point in time.
I would say they are right on that line right now. I mean, you had a lot of people still projecting them as a low seed still in the tournament, but their margin for error is literally gone. I mean, they have 4 losses in the league. They've got Kentucky coming to the PMAC Tuesday night. Before that, a Saturday night game with Alabama, and Kentucky, as good as they are, you can't bank on beating Kentucky. Maybe LSU pulls the upset on Tuesday night, and that will be a highly anticipated game and maybe the toughest task outside of what Kentucky has tomorrow night in Gainesville that is left on the rest of John Calipari's schedule. All that aside, like I said, the margin for error is virtually invisible now for Johnny Jones's team.
Tulane, a rematch with Temple. Last time they scored 8 points in the first half. Will be tough. Saturday morning affair gets them television exposure, but obviously
that's the women.
That's the women's game I'm talking about. The men are another story. They just played them. What am I saying? But speaking of women, I'm glad you brought that up. Loyola 20-1 now. Beat another great win over Belhaven, 78-70. Ranked 6th in the nation and as good a women's team at any level as you'll find.
Yeah, Loyola's women outstanding. Tulane's women have not had a bad year. They're right
on the line too. Yeah.
They are right on the edge. They're about to encounter what it's like to be in the American over the next couple of weeks when they got a couple of meetings with UConn. That will be interesting. Speaking of UConn, the defending national champions on the men's side,
there we go.
They're coming to Devlin Fieldhouse Saturday evening. That should be interesting to see just what kind of atmosphere that is for that game. It's a big day on Tulane's campus. You mentioned a women's game in the morning against Temple. They've got baseball alumni day going on in between, so it's a jam-packed day. If you're not out parading, Tulane's a pretty good place to be tomorrow.
High school basketball, Jesuit at Brother Martin. You can listen to it live on WGSO 990 AM and at WGSO.com. I'll have the call with Bill Gallagher. Richard Tiberville will be along for the ride as well. And then baseball, Delgado getting it cranked up. The rest of the Division I schools the following weekend. But the Dolphins, high anticipation again for another great season. Top of their order, all back. And they got to the World Series last year. So here we go again with Joe Sherman and his team with a chance to get something done.
Again, they were the number 1 ranked team in the country 2 years ago. They were number 2 in the nation last year and got to Grand Junction. Preseason, consensus top 10, really. Number 6 in one poll, number 9 in another poll, and like you said, they've got some returning talent. 7 out of 9 starters. Should be a fun team to watch, and they're all local kids. That's the thing. I know when you talk to Joe, he emphasizes, we're keeping these kids local. We're not going out, bringing people in from outside the area. It's all the people you've watched play through high school and have come up through the ranks and now getting a chance to continue playing in New Orleans.
Yeah, one negative note for LSU. Greg Dykman out 4 to 6 weeks, stress fracture in his foot. Disappointing. So that'll delay his start, but obviously he'll be back at some point and hope to see him get it going whenever the opportunity arises. Last but not least, not to talk much about it, but the trial continuing in Texas and Phil Hartbarger as an intermediary. That's pretty ironic. Given the circumstances, for those of us that remember what happened after Hurricane Katrina. And you get the impression with Mr. Benson electing not to testify that maybe this judge could eventually just say, you got to settle this one way or the other, because it was pretty obvious that they wanted Mr. Benson to say something, and he didn't. Had people speak on his behalf in big fashion, just as the other side did. So, I don't know. It seems to me that the public opinion court is one court, but this is in a courtroom, and it's in Texas, not in New Orleans. So I wouldn't be surprised to see, and the reason they bring Hartbarger in is to try to talk some sense into both sides and say, okay, guys, can we make sense out of this and settle in some fashion?
Exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, we've talked about, this is a family matter. And while it does involve elements that are of the public interest, be it banks, car dealerships, obviously 2 professional franchises here in Louisiana, it still comes down to a family matter. And ideally, you want to get all those people back together and you want to get this thing worked out however it happens to be.
Yeah, people keep asking us for comments. There isn't much we can say beyond whatever we've said already because, again, it's a family matter. It's a court case. We're not legal analysts. All we can do is observe and watch and hope and pray that something good comes of this. That's really all we can do.
Exactly. It's all you can do. Hope it works out for the best. And when we say for the best, obviously that includes the best interest of everyone here in the city as it relates to the Saints and the Pelicans.
All right, Lenny, as always, thanks. Have a great weekend.
All right, we'll see you Monday.
That's our First NBC Bank weekend preview, brought to you by First NBC Bank with 35 locations throughout Southeast Louisiana and the Florida Panhandle. For Lenny, I'm Kenny. Have a great weekend, and God bless you.